For whatever reason, it was the right time in my life to hear those words and to begin to face this reality, this truth about my life that I had never entertained before. Believe that we have a wonderful Heavenly Father, and I believe that was His voice to me. What happened? Who was my mother? Who was my father? What were they like? My heart believed that I was a mistake. I wasn't wanted. These issues of abandonment and rejection, it's just caused my heart to be open to want more.
Welcome to Live Well, Be Wise, the podcast that deepens the well-being conversation, finding the gold in your stories of hardship and the connection to wise action and lived wellness. We're here with a friend and an old neighbor of mine, Linda Congdon. She's written a book, Planted by Love. It's her first book. And we're really excited to find out what this book is all about. So welcome to the show, Linda.
Well, thanks, Kari. First of all, it's great to get reconnected with you. Just think of all the wonderful memories from being up on the hill and watching you grow up and my kids.
I'll just share one memory. So I rode the school bus with Linda's oldest son, Sam. We lived way out in this rural area. First day, making that first step onto this gigantic bus. I can still see the little dress I was wearing. And so Sam and I rode that bus forever with our lunch boxes, and we'd get off the bus and we'd walk by your house first. It's always waving at you, and so sweet to reconnect, as you said. So why don't you kick us off by just telling us a little bit about the inspiration for this book? How did it all come to be?
The story is about me searching for and finding my birth mother. And it's just really full of different experiences and understandings that came to me personally through going on this journey of looking for my birth mother. And that was quite a while ago. That started about 35 years ago. And many, many years went by after walking through these different experiences and understandings and insight. And it finally became apparent to me I had a desire to write the story, to share it with others. And I never thought that it would just be to an audience of people in particular that were adopted. Felt like some of my experiences that I share are applicable to people in lots of different kinds of circumstances and wounding. Anyhow, that was the inspiration.
Actually, it really lines up with our mission here on the podcast, which is to take stories, people's lived experiences, and find out how that shaped them, growing through hardship and challenge, but then also sharing that out to inspire all of us have these collective wounds, if you will, and we can learn so much from each other. So really glad you're here and that you wrote this book. It's beautiful. I've read it like 4 times now.
Yeah, once you pick it up and you go through all these experiences, you kind of forget what some of the other ones are. And then going back, you're like, oh, yes. And so I'm glad you brought up that thread that it's not just a book about adopted children, because you're right, it has so much more to tell, and I think there's some other threads as well, and we'll touch on those as we go. Linda, you say in your book that the landscape of my heart was ruptured and had been buried by the emotional landslide of the loss of my natural parents. How did you come first to know this as an adult?
Sure. This whole discovery and process of understanding that I had been disconnected, buried, and cut off from my true self or true heart began when I was 38 years old in a very unique way. So how it started was I was in my home up on Stemilt Hill when, totally unexpected, I had what seemed like the most foreign thought I'd ever had in my life. And that thought was, you have a natural father. And then, immediately following that thought, I heard these words. You think of it as a closed book, but it's an open book to me. And it's hard to describe what I felt at the time other than it was shocking, because even though I knew I was adopted, it was just something that I had never, ever thought about at all. And that is where this journey began. when I heard the words, you think of it as a closed book, but it's an open book to me. I'm a Christian and I believe that we have a wonderful Heavenly Father, and I believe that was His voice to me, and that it was, for whatever reason, it was the right time in my life to hear those words and to begin to face this reality, this truth about my life that I had never entertained before.
And was this the first time that you remember really hearing the words of God in your whole life?
No.
Okay.
When I was 13 years old, began to hear words from God, and it came in the form of poetry. And I remember hearing words, but just within, as fast as I could write them down, I would write, because I was growing up in my adoptive home in some very, very difficult circumstances. These words met my heart, where I felt loved, deeply loved, but they also became like a tangible evidence to me in a sense. Oh, this is God. And that's how I began to write poetry, and I'm very aware when these times would happen when I was alone, when I was 13, my heart was so warmed by the love of God. And I just felt like the love I hadn't been getting and desperately needed, I was being met by love.
Incredible. So fast forward to then 38, and you're getting this download, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
Just out of the blue. This thought, this voice, these words come to you.
Yeah.
What did you do with that? How did you begin to face that?
Well, hearing those words, having the thought, is what caused me to begin to think about my life circumstances, about what happened. Who was my mother? Who was my father? What were they like? This whole thing jump-started those thoughts and desire to begin to know, want to know.
Love the phrase that you used. The landscape of my heart was ruptured.
Those words and that understanding did not come until about 2.5 years ago. And that was as a result of finally deciding to write this part of my story. I wanted to do it, but I had too many fears. And finally, when I made a decision one day, after my husband had told me something that he was afraid of, it spurred me to say, well, this is what I'm afraid of. And I said, I feel like I'm supposed to write this story out of my life, but I'm afraid. The next day I woke up and I made the decision, I'm going to write this. And it was after I started writing, and of course, after I started writing, all the fears just dissolved. It's like, now what was I afraid of?
Right. I love that.
That I had just written a little bit. And one morning, upon awakening, I had this vivid picture of what I describe here in this sentence, of seeing a huge chasm or fissure in the earth like you might see in pictures after a massive earthquake. And I just had the picture as well as the understanding just kind of gently came. And again, I would attribute that to the Spirit of God, just explaining to me, this is what happened to your heart. This is analogous of what happened to your heart when you lost your natural parents and your heart was buried. So that's how that came.
Everyone has to read this book. It's fabulous. It's short, but it's powerful. And it's so inspiring. But I'm going to kind of jump to this point in the book. So you get in touch with this agency in Washington State. It's called WARM. And what's the full
WARM
name of that?
stands for Washington Adoption Rights Movement.
Reached out to them, you kind of register with them and say, I'm looking for my birth mother. And in the book you say, you get a call from the person you're working with. Her name was Mickey. And she says to you, it's your birth mother, we found her, she's going to call you in 20 minutes. And you say, Denial's casket-like door was blasted wide open. Previously, I really thought I had no feelings about my birth mother. What was that like?
That is a moment in my life that I will never forget, ever.
Yeah.
Because I really did think, because I didn't know anything about my birth mother or my birth father, there was no emotional connection in me. It was just like something that was void and empty. And I think I want to just back up a teeny bit in the story here, that once the search through WARM was initiated, it was 1.5 years after the initiation of the search until we got any kind of information. The process gets started, there's an excitement about it, and then kind of nothing, for 1.5 years. So before this call from Mickey, there had been her contacting us, letting us know that they had some non-identifying information. How old was she when we were born? What was the color of her hair? That type of thing. But still nothing. That's still distant. That's still kind of out there. It's still hazy. Yeah. But to get this phone call, I'd like you to think back to maybe some of these old movies where they're showing people in the 1800s and they're mining. And they've got to set a fuse or light a fuse. And they need to blast open things in the tunnel or in the cave where they're doing the mining to be able to open things up. And so first they light the fuse. And sometimes it shows it's kind of a slow process. It doesn't, and everybody's watching the fuse burn. And then all of a sudden the fuse hits the explosive that it's attached to, and it's just blown to smithereens, the rock, everything. That's probably a good way to describe what happened to me that day, because all of a sudden the fuse that had been lit had now, with this phone call, just caused this explosion in my heart. And all of a sudden I began screaming, wailing, and laughing all at the same time. So this huge just outpouring of
it's just like you broke open
emotions that were just, it was beyond my control, basically. And thankfully my family were there, and they came around me and just put their arms around me and held me. And that was beautiful too. That was wonderful. Yeah, I did. I got in touch with feelings that were there that I had no idea were there whatsoever, because I was cut off from those feelings. They were down underneath everything, but they were there.
There were the gold in the mine
that there was
see.
deep down there. Do you think that the impact would have been less if, because in that call you find out that she's calling you immediately.
20 minutes is not long.
20 minutes.
Get prepared.
I mean, no wonder there's an explosion there. Oh my gosh, I not only know that she's out there, but now I get to hear her voice. She's going to hear mine. What do I say? Was that part of the explosiveness?
Absolutely. I mean, the reality that, yes, I did have a mother just hit with full force. Yeah. It was there. And there was no suppressing it any longer or burying it. It was out in the open.
How does that still feel today in your body?
Well, I'm on the verge of tears. It's still something that I look back on, wondering how I could have been so cut off from feelings. And it really, I would say it was just the beginning of feeling. As I said, it's a moment in my life that I will never forget. It was uncontrolled, and it was natural, and it was real. Yeah. So it makes me feel alive. Let me put it that way. It makes me feel alive.
I love that. Couldn't we all use that?
Right?
Reframing or healing to say, what feels like it might ruin me makes me feel alive.
I mean, we were seeing this real time, just you talking about the story and then now just explaining how that feels today. I mean, we're seeing that in you right now. You
say in the book, you had to come face to face with what resided in your deep heart. And what I love is that you quite quickly begin to equate this with you knew it was about forgiveness. And I'm wondering, how did you come to know? Because for a lot of us, when we are suffering or in challenge, we can stay there for a very long time. So walk us into that a little bit for you.
Sure. My sister and I had decided before meeting our birth mother, Pat, that when we met her, I would take a picture of Susan first giving Pat a hug. And then she was going to take my picture. It would be my turn to give her a hug. When we met her, that's exactly what we did. Prior to this moment, I felt like a balloon that was just full of joy and excitement as well as anxiety. But when I took the picture, and not just took the picture, I think it was seeing this, all of a sudden it felt inside emotionally like all the air of excitement and joy just totally rushed out of me. And I was left with a feeling flat, like I had no feelings. It was suddenly gone. And I did not understand that. In fact, until in that particular chapter, how throughout our 3 days of time with our birth mother,
And this was the first meeting.
this was
Very
our first time we
Yep.
ever met her, yes. And that this persisted. I was aware of this feeling emotionally flat. And it was very kind of confusing, and I couldn't understand it. This sense of not wanting to be attached to my mother or have anything to do with her continued for about another 2 years after our initial meeting, because she in fact told us when we were having our first visit that she spoke to us in the womb and said, "I'm not going to be keeping you." Now, not that I would have understood that, you know what I'm saying, but I got
Right.
the sense that because she knew she was going to give us up to protect herself emotionally, she shut down. And normally, you know, a baby in utero would be receiving the warmth and love of the mother. That's what came to my heart, to my understanding, that in response to her heart shutting down to us emotionally, because she knew she was going to give us up, that I did the same thing.
Yeah.
That I shut down to her.
She became numb. She had to numb herself, and you had the same reaction to her.
That's what I came to understand.
And that's such a human experience. You know, I just want to reflect that here for a moment. When we get hurt in any shape, physically, smacked with an insult, wounded by someone that should be caring for us, we want to just shut right down.
Kind of came to the understanding that I wanted to hurt her like I felt she had hurt me.
Yeah.
So again, like you said, when we are deeply wounded, that's our propensity is
Yes.
to do back to whomever. So that's kind of how this circumstances led me to realize that this was a forgiveness issue. And I have to say, some things are easy on our own to forgive, but there's things like this, I don't feel like on my own I could have forgiven her. I felt like I needed somebody that could help me, and that somebody was God.
Yes.
And
yes. You needed your team
Yeah,
support.
team support.
Yes.
I feel like for me, forgiveness, and for anybody, I think, is at first it's a choice. You make a choice or a decision. I want to be able to forgive her.
Can
So,
I pause you right
sure.
there and just ask, did you feel like that was going to be a gift for her or for you?
Well, the answer to that is a gift for both. Because I've discovered in my own life that forgiveness actually, it does free the other person. It lets them go. It definitely lets you off the hook too. It lets
From
you
the pain hook.
from the pain and
Yeah.
everything. I feel like for myself that if I hadn't made that choice, that I would be holding myself hostage to this hurt and to my birth mother. It wasn't a quick process, and actually
No,
may
don't
still
imagine.
be going on.
Any forgiveness I've ever wandered into is ongoing. We just have these stages.
Like layers,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think that when you're aware of something that needs forgiveness and you take that step to choose to forgive, it just helps your heart, I think, my heart to be receptive to other situations, to be aware of that.
Yeah, I almost think of it as clearing space.
Yes. Yeah. If you're holding that negative
Thorns
energy,
taking up energy. It's taking up. It's like a room for rent. You got so much square footage in this place.
true. So
It's
true.
all backed up with these thorns from We have
Yes.
to free ourselves from that to fully live into that space.
I think that's right on, Ari. And so one of the books that has been very important to me is a book by Karen Burton Maines, and it's called The Key to a Loving Heart. And she uses amazing, wonderful analogy of a big old mansion that was neglected and abandoned. And how it once was a stately place with wide open verandas and fresh air blowing in through seeing the curtains move in the windows and people coming in and out. And now it was this abandoned, boarded up place. And she uses that as an analogy for the heart and what happens when, because of wounds and because of hurts, we are closed up and doors are locked, which keeps us from having, well, we'll say, relationship with others.
So you move into a forgiveness stage, and then you're on your healing journey, basically, from there on out. And you mentioned several times in your book about unearthing beliefs that there's no comfort for me, I am a mistake. How did you work transforming long-held beliefs, and how important was this work to the whole of your journey of coming back home to a loving heart?
I explain this in my book in different chapters. I tell about different ways that these buried false beliefs are brought up to my awareness. And they usually came through difficult circumstances.
Right? It's not usually how that happens. There we are in the dark, and wham!
Yeah.
There's something we didn't know. Yeah, give us an example.
What about I'm a mistake? My background is in nursing, and I remember as a brand new nurse working in the OB section that when a baby was being given up, born out of wedlock, they would actually be separated in the nursery from the other babies. They were like put over in a corner. I vividly remember this. There was a viewing area where people could walk, and hearing people comment about these babies that were put over here by themselves that were being given up, saying, "Oh, what a shame. That's so sad." And I've never forgotten that, because obviously my heart believed that I was a mistake. I wasn't wanted.
Just as you said that, I held my breath. I mean, that's heartbreaking.
It is. It really is. And so for some of these issues, these things of these false beliefs, like I'm a mistake, I didn't know either. I was living out of shame that I am bad. And that came from that message, I'm a mistake. So it was through a variety of experiences that I felt, in a sense, put into place by God. So this was very interesting. So one morning in a previous church that I was in, I was on the worship team, and the person leading the songs and everything asked me in advance, would you sing the first 2 lines of the verse? And I said, sure, or yes. And immediately I thought, why did I say that? I thought, I don't like to solo anything. But I'd already committed myself, and so I did it. There wasn't a problem. But as we're done with the songs and I'm walking down off the platform, I heard clearly again the voice of the one who knows me so well. The reason you don't like to solo anything is because you believe or think that if you make a mistake, others will see that you are the mistake. What? I just amazed that I heard that so clearly. But what happened was that set me free in my heart. Because here this lie was exposed that I had believed and lived out of all of my life.
Almost like it's a poison that you just suddenly get the light shined on.
Exactly.
Or some sort of toxin in your system, and then you felt free because you understood what was happening.
Exactly. I mean, to instantly have that understanding, I have to credit God, because that wouldn't have come from me. Upon seeing that and hearing that, I was like, oh, that's why I don't like to do anything solo. oh, that's what's behind that. It's like, oh my gosh. Well, it was the beginning of setting me free in that particular area of my heart and of my life.
So I would like to back up, because in a previous chapter called Receiving, you had mentioned going to this conference. Did you know what this conference was specifically about, or that it was going to go into this phase of forgiveness and then specifically forgiving fathers? I found it quite profound, because I did not grow up with my father, do not know him. So to me, this was kind of a turning point in your story, not only for forgiveness, but the way it happened, and to know that we can do this without these people physically being in our lives.
So I'm in this Women's Aglow conference. The last day of the conference, the speaker was just talking about how we tend to view our Heavenly Father, if you believe in a Heavenly Father, through the lens of our relationship with our earthly fathers. And at the end of her speaking, she said, get by yourself and just take a moment and talk to him and just ask him to show you if there's any particular way your perception of him was affected by your earthly father. So I did that. I was just by myself. And I began to think about my dad that raised me, who I just loved. And then I thought, but wait, I have another father, birth father, that I don't know. And I thought, well, he doesn't really matter because I didn't know him or anything, no connection. And instantly, when I had that thought, I saw a picture of a thick brick wall. And I instantly also knew that this wall had a name. And the name of the wall was, I don't care. And I just saw that this wall, I had erected the wall to protect myself from, I say in the book, really the protection I think was from not just the loss of my real father, but it was from him not wanting me. And then I saw that this wall was there to protect me from looking at and facing the pain of this. And it was all just so immediately clear to me. And it was like, oh my gosh. And I acknowledged that just between me and God. And then that short little time ended, and the speaker said something like, I just perceive that there's some women here that may like to have like a hug from like a father. And she called up, and two of them I know, but another man came up that I'd never seen him in my life. And immediately when I looked at him, I heard these words, go to the man that you don't know. He represents the father you never knew. I was like, really? I have to do that?
You're feeling like,
It was quite emotional. And so there was a choice. There were 3 lines, and I went up to the man I didn't know. And when I got up there, I just blurted out. I said, I'm adopted. And I felt like when you came up here and I don't know you, that the Lord said, you represent the father I never knew. And this man he began to weep. He just threw his arms around me. And all he said was several times, and it wasn't quiet either. It was like, and he's sobbing, will you forgive me? Of course, that went straight to my heart. And I'd already felt in the past that I'd started that process. Well, here it was.
another stick of dynamite.
Another stick of dynamite.
In the mind.
Explosive.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Who's got the Kleenex?
No, I was actually just fighting it back.
Trying to be all pro over there.
I was trying to be pro. Yeah, I was trying to hold all that back because I was feeling that for you. But when I did read the book initially, I was, now that I say it, I was weeping for you. And I understand those feelings that would allow you to break through.
Yeah. We honor you and your journey and this beautiful life that has given you this chance to share it and heal it and lean into it. That's not easy. You're a courageous woman, Linda. Thank you.
Well, I guess I would just want to say that having these very custom designed experiences that have brought me face to face with some of these issues of abandonment and rejection. It's just caused my heart to be open to want more, because I don't think we're done yet. I don't think anybody is. I think our life is a journey. I just feel that made me come alive in ways that I never was before. I lived a lot of my life not very alive and not connected to myself, and which keeps you from connecting with others more genuinely. Just a lot of, not due to my own fault, but circumstances where severe separations, multiple separations, and to begin to discover that we were really meant to be connected to ourselves, to one another, to God. And for me, some of these different insights and experiences just show me how well I'm known and loved. And that's huge. That's huge for all of us, to know that we are known, because it's one of our deepest human needs, is to be known, to know and to be known.
To be seen, yep.
And to be seen, to be heard, and it's been hard but good.
So I think that's a great segue, this conversation around you're opening the heart, that these wounds, this experience, these separations, I would almost think of it as like a splintering. They shattered you, buried you in this landslide. And you talk about covering up the well of my heart. I'd love to use this realization you had to talk about how we all attempt to cover the wells of our hearts when we've been hurt. But that there's this just intuitive human nature to cover ourselves up, abandon ourselves and the other person, and maybe even to want to strike out and do to them as they did to us. But that for you use this phrase in your book, you couldn't deny your foundational human need for love. And this is such a profound teaching in your writing. Could you say a little bit about that?
Sure, and I'll just kind of briefly go over the story of that. So one night I'm just get up during the middle of the night to go use the bathroom, had walked through our house, and I'm coming back through the living room. And for some reason, I just walked over to the big picture window that looked out over our front yard. And I don't know why I did that. There was nothing to look at. There was nothing to see. It was in the middle of the night, so it was dark. But when I stopped for a moment there, I began to hear very clearly, I would say, the voice of my Heavenly Father. He reminded me of the well, the buried well that was in a corner of our front yard. And when the well was unproductive, no water came up into it, so then it was covered with a big concrete lid so nobody would fall into it. No kids would fall into it. It was just out of sight. But it wasn't out of God's sight. And he spoke to me using this empty well as an analogous to the condition of my heart. And just not in a condemning way in any way, just bringing this out into the light and saying, your heart is like that well, that empty well that was abandoned because no water came up into it. And you did the same thing. You abandoned when the water of love that you were meant to receive from your mother and father, when that never happened and you did not receive love, you decided to cover over that well and pretend as though the well never existed. And, that well is still there in your heart. And you still need that well filled with love. And I don't mean to suggest that only God can do it, but he can. But the needs of your heart can also be met through family and other people. And he let me know he wanted to fill that well of my heart with his love, not one time, but over and over and over again. And that through him I would have access to receiving his love.
What a stop at the window.
Hello. I thought I was going back to bed, but then
I thought I just had to go to the bathroom.
Oh my gosh! It just what a understanding that came and life-changing, and it's ongoing. I do want to go back to one thing for a moment about the well. We were created to be first receivers of love. That's who I believe and understand that, and that's evidenced through life. You look at a child born. Well, that baby can only thrive if it's loved and cared for in multiple ways. And the baby does nothing in a sense except just be the baby. And it is a receiver. But I've discovered a lot of our receivers are broken. Our hearts have been broken. And so if we're trying to give love when we actually haven't received it, something's a little bit amiss. The well is a good picture of this. What does the well do? Nothing. It's a container for water.
Yeah.
Let's say the water is love. It does nothing. It just receives it. We're meant to be receivers throughout our life, receiving love. And I've just found in my life that I've been receiving love, that I just am aware of this, like, it feels like a foundation in my heart inside. And the foundation is, I know I'm loved. I know I'm a child. I'm a child of God, and I'm loved. And out of that awareness and out of that foundation that's been being laid in my heart through what I tell about in the book, out of my story, it's a whole new place to live. I'm living loved, and it's a wonderful, it doesn't mean bad things don't happen, they do, and all of that, but it feels like I have this foundation inside.
What is it like to live from that foundation? What have been some impacts that you've noticed?
That's good. Well, I would say before some of this work began in my heart, I didn't know it, but I was very needy of love. Very, very needy. And
the well was dry.
The well is dry. And so naturally what you're going to do is you're going to look for love. And I looked for it in many wrong places. And I'm very aware now that I don't feel needy. I can be myself. I don't have to cling on to somebody else wrongly. I'm not looking for them to meet me. I mean, although I receive love through relationship, but that's a big thing that has changed in my life. That's another whole story.
Yes.
Another book.
It is another book. So much in our life changes. I'll just speak from my own experience when we stop looking outside of ourselves for answers. Yeah. Full stop. And love is that foundational need, and we can look at that. I love the well analogy. Thirst, right? Food and water, primal need. So is love. And if we don't have it inside of us on any level, we can drink and drink and drink, and we will never be satisfied, as you say. Yes, it's just like this bedrock that holds us up to have so many layers of goodness in our lives. When I hear you talk, I'm thinking of words like just worthiness, a sense of self-worth, that I am enough. Wow, everyone I know struggles with that.
Well, definitely. And some of these things that I've walked through and experienced help me to understand other people too. And everybody, I always say everything that can be broken is broken. There's nothing that's not, and yet there is hope, there is healing, there is change that's possible. And knowing that you're loved has been life-changing for me. Coming into that, and that's going to be ongoing. I mean,
you say it like it's active, coming into.
A practice.
Yeah,
it's a reminder. I think we always have those forgetting moments, and then we're reminded.
I'd also like to point to this beautiful relationship you had with God and the way your relationship was formed, but also to widen that to maybe some listeners out there, don't identify with God per se or any religion or maybe a different religion. And when I hear you talk, I also hear words like insight, intuition, the wise self, spirit. But there's this channel, and no matter what we call that voice, it comes through this channel. And that is just this truth. It's like the truth channel, right? Can I program that on my
Turn it up, turn it up.
And there it is. But I think there's such a beauty in hearing your story and other stories that just highlight the fact that this can happen. It is happening. Just because we live in the 21st century and it is loud with information and clutter and nonsense. That doesn't mean we can't tune in and hear our own wise truth, whether it's coming from beyond or within. So thank you so much for inspiring us. Do you have anything that you would like to share just as an inspirational prompt, maybe a question or anything at all for people that might be on a similar journey or just working to find love in their own life and their own heart?
To fill up their well.
Yeah.
In the past, I would have maybe, and in fact I did, look at a lot of the things that would look to me like failures. But you might consider that those circumstances, those events, are actually stepping stones. They're part of life, and they actually can lead to good things. And I have a lot of what I would call brokenness in my life, but I view it differently now. I see them as stepping stones. You might say like walking on water, only I'm taking one step at a time.
Yeah.
I see them as actually points of growing and maturing.
Planted by
Love, yes.
I love the reframe. I mean, that's what it is, right? It's a reframe of thinking.
Yeah.
So taking the negative and turning it into a positive reality for yourself. And it's not always easy. I mean, you're talking about challenges that, I mean, we all have our challenges. But some of these challenges people would never step up to. You just stay in your shell and go about life. But like you said, then there's not growth.
I actually kind of addressed this in the last poem, and I would normally always give a title to that poem. A number of years ago, I wrote this particular poem, and for whatever reason, I didn't title it. But when I had written most of this book, I thought of this poem, and I went and grabbed it out of a box where it was just sitting with no name on it. And I already knew what the name of the book was going to be. And I looked at this poem, and I go, oh, it's Planted by Love.
Yes,
Let me just read this
please
to
do.
you. With a trowel, the gardener broke open the ground and uprooted the various weeds. Then into the newly prepared soil, he carefully planted a seed. And after a season had slowly passed, new life began to show as a tender stem tenaciously emerged, freed from its grave below. Then, as the tender, newly born plant slowly inched upward toward day's light, its roots stretched further downward into the nurturing soil of night. Finally, the fruit of the gardener's toil burst into glorious sight as the plant, now gracefully blossomed, matured in the soil of darkness and light. Take heart now and listen carefully to the master gardener of your soul, for what he has sown in the garden of your heart, in his timing will spring forth and grow. Know that in the soil of your adversities, there is a fertile place for the gardener to sow the seeds of his redeeming truth and love, so that in him you may gracefully grow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. This has been a healing conversation for me, and I hope for many, many others, and an inspiration to keep going, to keep growing. We'll look forward to the next book.
All right, me too.
Live Well, Be Wise is produced and recorded by Kari Lyons Price and yours truly, Dorinda Carlson. Our music is titled Inside You by Leva, a musician and composer at Lemon Music Studio, who we happily found on pixabay.com. Our circle of sharing has concluded for today, but we'd like to give a great gratitude to you, my friend, for listening, for tuning in, maybe even tapping into that understanding and compassion and the knowing within that tells us we're not alone in our own stories. So maybe you would like to share one of your own, or know a friend or a mentor or a teacher, someone you admire that has an extraordinary and inspirational story. We all have stories. The more we share, the more we know we're not alone. And don't be shy to reach out to connect in other ways, too. Of course, we'd love for you to subscribe and also give feedback. We wouldn't be here without you. We appreciate you. Live well, be wise.